I'm not sure what a hodgepodge is, but I know it when I see it. And that's when we get a lot of different questions about general finance that come in off the radio, off our website, things that you send in to yourlifeafterwork.com and just say, hey, Joe, what does this mean? Or our Facebook page at Financial Enhancement Group, Tidbits Group, where we're happy to answer questions when they come in. Chris and I are going to spend some time today and go over some general financial issues and things that you might want to consider. Well, good morning and welcome back to Consider This Program. I'm your host, Joe Clark.
And I'm Chris Rodgers.
And we are happy to have you along. Thanks for spending the time with us today. The whole segment's been about back to basics. It's going back to the root of decisions that you need to make in the opening. I talked about John Wooden teaching his players how to put on socks. In the fundamentals that requires to be able to start there when you're one of the world's top and still top college basketball coaches in history. To start with, Chris, how you should put your socks on, just always amazed me and surprised me. But this is general finance. These are topics that you have fielded, Darren has fielded, Seth has fielded, some of the senior advisors have gotten, and other things that we've come in. So where do you want to start?
Well, Joe, let's start by breaking down, when we talk about general finance, one of the biggest things, there's really 2 to 3 main things of general finance that we get questions on. It's going to be budgets, it's going to be compound interest, and discipline. So really where I'm going to start first is breaking down compound interest. And before I get into that, it's going to be more of, let's first take a step back and look at simple versus compound interest. So when we talk about simple interest, that's going to be more so of a fixed payment of interest year over year. So think of that as a bond coupon where it says, hey, we're going to pay you 3% interest, and it's only based on the initial dollar amount that you invested. And so on the other end of the spectrum, you're going to be looking at compound interest, where, think of that more of like a CD. So if it pays a fixed amount of interest, you get that interest payment based on the amount you invested, but then year over year, it continues to pay interest based on the total balance rather than the initial investment. Is that a fair way of breaking it down?
Fair. So keep in mind, I spent 7 years of my life teaching at Purdue University. These are seniors. They've already been through 5 financial planning classes before they get to me, and this is their senior year, right? And I'm telling you this because I'm willing to bet, at least 90% of you know the answer to this question. It's going to date me a little bit because I taught from 2008 to 2015. But it's going to date me a little bit. But the interest rate was 4%. And the difference between bonds, and Chris, one thing, remember, bonds pay coupons. They don't ever pay interest. It's just taxed like interest. So even though when a bond goes up and down, that payment never changes. Taxed like interest, not paid like interest. So in a bank, on the other hand, when you look at a CD with compound interest, right, that typically compounds quarterly, right? Where a bond tends to pay a coupon usually twice a year, just so you understand. You're going to get 2 payments. Dividends are typically 4 times a year that come from a stock company that it can change. But in this, let's say you bought a CD that is at 4%. And so the question that I gave the students, and remember, these are seniors going out into the world with a degree in, essentially financial planning. It's their first week. I gave them a proficiency exam. You can ask Grant and Taylor and Jamie.
Did they pass?
They all did. But here was the question: if you have a $10,000 CD, right, that you put in, and it's compounding at 4%, and it's in a CD, is the annual return 4%, 4.4%, 16%, or 8%?
I mean, it'd be 4%. If the interest rate is 4% and it's paid. Well, you're saying quarterly, though.
It compounds quarterly. That's the way a CD works. So
yes.
what happens in fixed income, and this is important, what happens in fixed income is you don't have the ability to put the coupon back in.
Yep.
You can take that money and you can go buy another bond,
Yep.
right? But those payments are coming out.
Yes.
Hence one of the reasons why we call it simple return. In a compound return, The bank doesn't wake up one morning and go, "Hey, Chris, by the way, I'm getting ready to compound your money quarterly. Would you like the money?" Right?
Right.
No, they put it back in, and your money continues to compound. So you have interest on interest on interest on interest, and it's able to grow, right? And so obviously the 8% was a joke because that's paying it twice a year, confusing them with fixed income. Clearly, it's not four. You are getting growth on your money, and no, you don't get 4% a quarter when it compounds quarterly. And it's, so you have a slightly different number, but that's the way to work at it and to teach people how this truly works over a period of time when you have compounding periods of time. And I put down 4.4. I think it's actually a little bit higher, but I'm not going to get my calculator out to get it. The point is it's 4 plus the growth each quarter as it compounds on its compound as a compound.
And that's why compound interest is so important, because when you stretch that out over someone's lifetime, when they've been contributing to accounts from, age 16, 17, 18 till retirement age, that makes a huge difference that a lot of people don't always see, because, you could just do a simple, rate of return where it's like, well, I contributed, or I got an average of 8% over, this amount of contributions. But that's not really, that's the wrong way to look at it, because you've been earning money on your money over that longevity period of time where you don't have to contribute near as much as you would think in order to get to a future
We
dollar
did this on the market carver probably during the COVID, just because I thought it was interesting. Benjamin Franklin had been dead for 100 years, and he left a certain amount of money to his two favorite cities, Boston and Philadelphia. And one had an average rate of return that was about 0.5% less than the other, and the amount of money that was different over that 100-year period of time was phenomenal. Over a 0.5% differential, it was phenomenal, and a very important thing in understanding this process. So, if you want to see that or hear more about it, you can go to our website, considerthisprogram.com, and subscribe to the podcast to be able to get it, to watch the YouTube videos, and to get the newspaper column. All right, what's the next topic?
Well, Joe, the next thing that I think is important to at least bring up, and it's something that we've seen a lot over this past year with how the markets have gone up and down, has caused a lot of emotional turmoil in people. Things have, not as much with us and our families because they've been with us and they know our process, and we take care of people who don't want to worry about their money. But overall, in the overall financial services industry, there's been a lot of people who have made emotional decisions over this past year, just with how the markets have been going up and down. And so, really the next question or the next thing to address is how can compound interest be interrupted? And that is really where, we've seen some people go to cash last year. And, especially if they're in those, in the preservation or accumulation phase of finance, that's can really interrupt that compound interest and prevent future growth, because when we talk about making emotional decisions and possibly moving to cash, you not only have to be right once, but you also have to be right twice. And that's something that I've heard you say over the years, Joe, that it just makes sense, because everyone can try to press pause, but then they have to try to press play, and that's a very hard decision to make, especially if the market continues to go down.
It is very, very difficult. I've got somebody that I'm dealing with in Muncie that got out in July of 2008, right? So everybody thought she was a genius, $5 or $6 million genius-wise, right? And it would have gone way down in the Great Recession in 2008 and 2009. Now, obviously, we know the market has far more than doubled since then.
Yes.
And she's still in cash because she couldn't push play to get back in. There was no discipline to be able to get it in. So this show's been aimed about back to basics, right? It's been aimed at with how do you fix that discipline? How do you have a regimented way to be able to put discipline on the back burner? And don't think that I'm not emotional. I cry on commercials, right? I mean, it's
those dogs get you.
The dogs. I mean, the guy who says you don't have to tell the waiter your name. Right.
Yes.
And I have a habit of doing that. And, my wife just kind of elbows me, it's, that's why I cry. She elbows me. I'm abused. Now but it's understanding this stuff and having those disciplines there. So you've got time for one more quickie.
Yes. So Joe, this is really how the Financial Enhancement Group helps our families really with those disciplines, sticking to their process. And really that goes back to are 5 critical elements, and it's all centered around financial vision. And it's my job as your fiduciary, it's Joe's job, it's all of our job to make sure that you are focused on your financial vision. Because if we start to deviate or let emotional decisions deviate us from that vision, then there's an issue. And so it's our job to make sure that we try to take the emotional side out of it and help our families focus on their financial vision and the journey on where they're headed and where they've been.
Yeah, it's part of our trademark process where we do help you create the financial vision. We want you to craft it in your words, 2 to 3 sentences long. A couple of my favorite extremes. One, I've got a missionary that said at 65 he wants to spend more money on other people than him. Right, so that lets us know that he tends to be charitably inclined, even in his life after work. When he separates from the workforce, it helps us develop strategies along the way to make sure that we're prepared for that and ready to roll. And then you turn around on the other side, and I've got one lady that says at 92, I don't want to be a bag lady. And I'm not even sure what a bag dude would look like, but I understand the mission that she's at. She doesn't want to run out of money like her mother did, and wants to make sure that we're in good order. So we treat her investments a little bit differently than we treat the missionaries' investments. Everybody is unique, and you've got a unique journey. How we run our investment discipline, how we determine how to buy and sell and when to do that and how much to have allocated to the market depends on market conditions. It depends on economic conditions. And let's not kid ourselves. It depends on Federal Reserve policy and the things that are going on inside of there. Not so much political, but it does very much in terms of the financial or the fiscal policy that we're seeing in the Federal Reserve in terms of what goes on, because it directs the market. There's just no way around it. It does. But take these basics and use them. Think about compound interest in terms of how it works. Understand that time in the market matters more than timing the market almost every single time when you have a great deal of time involved. And Andrew would say, Joe, people talk about what happens if you miss the best days. That's true. He would say, what happens if you miss the worst days? That's also true. Just have a discipline. If you want to do it on your own, that's your business. If you're looking for a fiduciary, that's our business. Give us a call at 800-928-4001 or go to yourlifeafterwork.com. Get signed up for your Next Steps meeting. We'd love to meet you. It's 90 minutes, complimentary. We'll teach you the things we talked about today and apply them to your life. yourlifeafterwork.com.